Hey Clashes, in the early stages of September, we're going to get a lot of balance changes for equipments, which we have never had before. Which means the question then is, what equipments should I use now? What are the best equipments you can upgrade and put your resources in? I have covered all of those changes yesterday, and this means today we're going to take a look at the new ranking, an updated ranking, what I think is going to be the best and worst equipment and their combinations. And for this, we will go from hero to hero to hero and just talk about all of them and the new best combinations. Let's start with the Barbarian King, and this might be a surprise to you, but the Gauntlet and the Rage Vial, especially at the lower level, are still going to be the best combination because for those level, nothing changed. If you have the Gauntlet at level like 18 or below, nothing has changed for you, okay? The Gauntlet has got an incredible small nerf considering how strong it is, okay? So the Giant Gauntlet is still going to be crazy good, and Rage Vial is just cost value efficiency. It is just perfect because it's one epic only, and the synergy with the Rage Vial is just insane. The next one might be a surprise to you. Yes, Vamstash and Spiky Ball were already really solid before, but if you're sending your king into the base, you can combine the Spiky Ball actually really nicely with the Earthquake Boots. The reason for that is the Earthquake Boots are going to get a massive buff. Not only the percentage damage of the Earthquake around is going to be increased to 60% on the highest level, no. On top of that, the radius of the Earthquake is going to be increased by like 33%. That is a lot, and especially with the Spiky Ball combination, you can then one-shot defenses, which is kind of crazy. So you activate the ability, the Spiky Ball is going around, and all of those buildings which you hit with the Earthquake are going to be one-shot, which is crazy, okay? So don't underestimate that equipment combination. It's going to be really strong, and that's why I put it on number 2. The equipment combination where for me, it's personally really hard to say how strong it's going to be is Gauntlet and Spiky Ball. Both have received nerfs. Those were this was literally the powerhouse combination before the nerfs. And I could still see that it's still going to be the number 1 combination power-wise. But just because it's so, well, expensive, I have put it into the number 3 spot. Because by now, the gap between Gauntlet and Spiky Ball and the other 2 combinations which I have on here is way smaller by now, which makes it, in my opinion, more efficient to go for the other combination equipment because they are more, well, or less expensive. This is obviously then in the end way better. But let's take a look at the overall ranking I would do, which means default, if you have the ores, go for Gauntlet and Spiky Ball. If you want to go with one of the other equipment combinations, you can go with Gauntlet and Rage Vial, or combine the Spiky Ball with Vamstash, and that's another important thing. If you're playing like air spam or any attack strategy where the king is walking around the outside, then you want to combine Spiky Ball with a Vamstash. If you're playing any strategy where the king is walking inside the base, then you want to combine Spiky Ball with the Earthquake Boots, because this is where those defenses are getting one shot and completely decimated. That's the important combination which you have to take a look at. But that's pretty much already for the Barbarian King. I think next we should take a look at the Archer Queen and talk about the possible changes there. But before talking about the possible ranking changes, I think we should first introduce what the changes were, because the Archer Puppet got buffed and the Frozen Arrow got nerfed. Otherwise, no changes for the Archer Queen. And this leaves us with a really boring ranking, because not really anything is changing. The Archer Queen, well, the Archer Puppet buff is kind of like I think a bad joke, especially for the higher town level. Yeah, like you don't care if those archers are invisible. It's not doing a lot, unfortunately. And then the Frozen Arrow, I think for most people, if you would not tell them, they would not notice the 10% in slowdown, like the nerf. So that nerf is not that, not doing that much either, I would assume. So that's why the ranking is pretty much still looking the same. On the number 1 spot, we have the Invisibility Vial with the Magic Mirror, and then obviously either one of those 2 with the Frozen Arrow together, or on the number 2, Healer Puppet with either arrow, like Giant or Frozen. And then number 3, if you want to go really safe, you can go with the Healer Puppet and then Invisibility or the Magic Mirror. All of those are great combinations. Really big disclaimer though, the Magic Mirror is really strong, but currently it's a little bit weaker because it has a bug, which means the hit points which you should receive back that's not working currently, so for queen charges, it is a little bit more risky to use. It still has more power, more damage output than like the invisibility vial, but be careful when using it. You might have to use the queen ability early. But let's take a look at the more specific things, okay? For all of this, pretty much, again, nothing changed because we had not any major changes. The archer puppet is still pretty bad, unfortunately, and the frozen arrow is still really solid. So pretty much nothing has changed for the archer queen. So if you have any sort of decently upgraded equipments here, you're totally fine. Nothing really would change for you, and you will barely notice any difference. But moving forward to the warden, you might feel some difference over there. Because for the warden, we had a lot of changes. The eternal tome is getting nerfed. The healing tome is getting nerfed. The rage aura for the middle and lower town level is getting nerfed. The life gem is getting buffed. So this is bringing us to the ranking, which is looking like this. And it's still not a lot of change, because kind of like the Root Riders in the beginning, even though they were nerfed multiple times and they are still one of the strongest troops in the game, it's the same thing for the Eternal Tome and for the healing, like for the healing book. Those two things were just working so well hand in hand that this nerf is not really changing that much. Yes, it's now a little bit weaker, but still just so good and works with so many different troops. If you are still liking your warden as a one-man army, you still want to go with the rage aura and the fireball. The only difference here is now the number 3 spot, which is going to be if you're liking lava loon attacks, if you're liking hybrid, hog attacks, anything like that, then you should now use the life gem, because getting a 145 hit points more on every single troop is kind of crazy, okay? And this leaves us with this overall ranking, which means I will explain a little bit the categories. Always look from the left to the right, like best to worst for each single line. And the first one is going to be with high HP troops, if you're adding a ward to high hit points troops, and then you're doing no warden walk, okay? Then it's still like that's what most army compositions are nowadays, with like dragons, root riders, Valkyries, all of those troops which have a lot of hit points. You still want to go with the Eternal Tome and Healing Tome. If you're adding your warden with low hit point troops though, like balloons, like miners, like hog riders, all of those troops, then you want to combine Eternal Tome with the life gem, which has gotten a massive buff. Otherwise, if you're doing a warden walk with like super bowlers, you want to combine the life gem with the Eternal Tome, which is a really strong combination as well to keep your super bowlers, for example, alive. Next one, warden charges, which is as well adding like the super witch attack in there as well, as having still the fireball with the rage gem. Like nothing has changed there. And then warden blimps, which means like a super archer or like a blimp where you're covering that blimp with the warden. Nothing has changed there either, so pretty much everything like standard. So the warden had some changes, but mostly it's looking the same. But the Royal Champ, in my opinion, is having the biggest changes if we would exclude the Earthquake Boots. That's to me like one of the biggest winners in this balance change thing. I think the Earthquake Boots are going to be kind of underrated, and I'm really looking forward to use them. But the Royal Champ had a lot of changes, which had a lot of impact. And those changes are that the best equipment for the Royal Champion with the Invisibility Vial was nerfed. The second best equipment for the Royal Champion with the Hog Rider Puppet was nerfed, while the Rocket Spear, the epic equipment, actually got a buff. And with that, let's take a look at the synergy ranking, which is going to be a surprise. We have a new number 1 in my opinion, but let me introduce why exactly I think this way. The Rocket Spear with the shield was already before the nerfs a really cool combination. The reason why I'm suggesting this as the number 1 spot has one big reason. If you have so far not upgraded any of your equipment for the Royal Champion, those are the equipments I would upgrade, because especially for like new tower level which have just unlocked the Royal Champion, like tower 13, you can't unlock the haste vial, okay? So that's not possible. But you can already upgrade the Rocket Spear and the shield, which is then meaning that you can invest ores in a long form, strong equipment combination. While on the other side, you can't go right away for the Hog Rider Puppet or for the haste vial. That's not possible. And not upgrading any equipment for the Royal Champion at the beginning might not feel as cool. So this is why I would put it on the number 1. if we're talking about power, and that is really important, if we're just talking about raw power, I would put the Rocket Spear with the shield kind of on the same level as the haste with the Hot Rider Puppet. So they're kind of on the same line overall. Both have good good use cases and some bad ones as the other one, okay? So they have like different strength and weaknesses overall, but overall the power level is pretty much the same. So if you have already upgraded the haste with the Hot Rider Puppet, don't worry, those ores are not wasted. But if you're like slowly climbing up the tunnel ladder pretty much currently, I would invest my ores into the Rocket Spear with the shield, but that's just my personal opinion. The number 3 spot, but that's a really far behind number 3 spot, and it's kind of like a gadget one, or like I don't know, like when you don't have the haste spell just yet, then you can use the Royal Gem with the Hot Rider Puppet. But it doesn't feel as powerful, like, trust me there. But the Royal Gem otherwise doesn't have that many good other combinations. So like the 2 best combinations by far are Haste Vial with the Hot Rider Puppet or the Rocket Spear with the shield. Those 2 are going to be the best. If you have already Haste and Hot Rider Puppet upgraded, go for it. If you're like down level 13, 14 or something where you don't have the haste spell just yet, I would just go for Rocket Spear and shield. But this is coming to this list as well. The default by now, in my opinion, as I just said, is Rocket Spear with the shield. Otherwise, go for haste and the Hot Rider Puppet if you have it already unlocked, or you're already tunnel 16, then you can go for it as well. It just feels really bad if you're tunnel 15, 14 or 13 and you don't have the haste spell, then the Hot Rider Puppet just does not feel as strong, and the synergy from the Hot Rider Puppet, especially after the nerf, is not as great with the shield or with the Rocket Spear, okay? So that's why my ranking. If you're doing a Royal Champion charge with like an invisibility spell, like a lot of invisibility spells, then I think the haste and the Royal Gem are still an incredible good combination. And otherwise, you can still, like, that's the cool thing about the Rocket Spear and the shield. You can do a lot of things. You can do like backhand, you can send it with your main push. You can do as well like a Royal Gem and charge with that equipment as well. So it's really flexible, I would say, which makes it really cool to use as well. But for specific the Royal Gem charge, I would go with haste and Royal Gem. But again, that's only for channel 60 because you don't have the haste on a lower tower level. So that's overall the situation with the Royal Champion. It's really limiting because the haste spell, I would say maybe even still the strongest equipment for the Royal Champion, is only unlockable on like the highest tower level, which is really weird, okay? So that's like the strange thing, and that's why I put the number 1 position right here. It's not only about power, it is well about like access towards those equipments. I really want to make this point clear because I see already people getting scared of like, okay, I have now spent so many ores on the haste and Hot Rider Puppet because it was such a clear number 1 equipment combination for the Royal Champ for such a long time, that they now feel like sad because the equipment or like the ores are wasted or anything. That's not the case, okay? If you have put those ores in, you're completely fine, and it works still, okay? But that's pretty much it for this one. And well, that's as well pretty much for the video. We have all of those changes covered. Overall, I have to say, I really like the changes because I think we have more viability now for the Royal Champ. We have more than now 1 equipment combination which you can use. We have now 2. Hey, that's already more than 1. For the Warden, pretty much kind of the same thing still. We have a lot of different equipments now which can be used. Healer Tome. And the Eternal Tome is not the by far number 1 combination anymore, which is kind of cool as well. For the Queen, in my opinion, equipment-wise, it was already the best balanced hero when it comes down to equipment. I think it's now going to be even better. I'm a little bit scared about the shield, sorry, not about the shield, but like about the magic mirror, that this equipment is like now way too strong if it's getting like, not buffed, but like the bug removed, hopefully eventually, which is going to be a buff. Maybe they're going to add a small nerf to compensate that buff. I don't know. Let's see how that's going to work. But still, Magic Mirror is insanely strong. And then King, I think the one hero which I'm the biggest fan of those changes, because as I said, we have now so many cool combinations you can go for. Gauntlet with Rage Vial. Obviously double epic if you're like somehow like, I don't know where you're finding those Fairy Ore, but if you're getting them upgraded, still an insane combination with double epic. But you can go with Spiky Ball Vemstash, you can go with Spiky Ball Earthquake Boost. So there's overall a lot of cool combinations for the King which you can do, which is amazing, right? Like that's the purpose of having equipments, that you're flexible and that you can use a lot of them. So overall, I really like the changes. And that's pretty much it for the video. I hope I was able to break things down. I will do an updated ranking a couple of weeks after the balance changes, so we can have a deeper look, because I want to make this sure that I make this clear in this video. This ranking is obviously speculation and based on the experience which I've had on the developer bit when I tested those balance changes a little bit. So yeah, just so you know, I had a little bit of testing, so this ranking is not coming from anywhere. But as well, it obviously takes way longer to be 100% sure about my ranking. But I just wanted to give you the first impression of how I think the ranking will look like. Let me know if you would see anything different. And I hopefully see you guys back tomorrow with the next class video. Until then, see ya and bye-bye.